Hello, my name is Paul Tranny, and I'm really excited to take you through Adobe Edge Animate. It allows you to create rich animation as well as interactivity, all using web standards, CSS, HTML, JavaScript, but allows me to do it in a real creative way. In fact, let's dive right in. So the first thing you need to do is create a new file. So I'm going to click Create New File. This creates an HTML file. Okay, so this is nice. I'm actually working in an HTML file, not a binary format. From there, I can select my stage, and you're given this stage as well as properties on the left, a timeline on the bottom, and then an elements panel on the right. So I can really just focus on this particular stage in this case. And with it selected, notice how I can change the width. So I can literally scrub the width and increase that size. In fact, I can just type in 700 pixels right there. So type in 700 there. In fact, we can change the color right here as well as the gradient. So look, I actually get the CSS for the gradient, as you can see right here. So I'm adding a gradient. So I encourage you to click and just add a gradient. And what I'm going to build is just a nice sort of safari scene. So this is going to be like a sunset. So that's what I'm making here, this nice sunset gradient as I manipulate this color stop. You could add as many as you want, add a burst, whatever the case may be. So that looks pretty good so far. In fact, let's just tone that down a little bit. But what I want to do next is I really want to add a sun. Okay, and what you can do in Edge Animate is you can actually draw out certain shapes. So I can take the ellipse tool, draw out a circle, you guessed it, something like that, changing the color again in the properties panel, making this look the way I want it to look, something like that. And in this case, what if I want to give this a nice glow? Well, you might take a look, well, where's a glow in here? Well, there might not be a glow, but what about a shadow? Turning that on, well, I didn't say shadow, but you take that shadow and just expand out that shadow blur to about 60 pixels and then change the color, and then you have a glow. So I encourage you to take a look at these properties and just get creative with it, because it's really fun what you can do. Overall, I'd say that looks pretty good, but chances are you're not going to be drawing everything in Edge Animate. And luckily what you can do is you can import items. So that's our next step, is to go to File, Import, and let's import some graphics. At this point, I'm going to import some ping files, even an SVG file. So these were created in Photoshop. This was created in Illustrator. It could also, maybe there's a JPEG in there, a GIF, doesn't matter. I can import any of those web graphic file formats, just like I've done here. All right, it imported a lot. Look at all of this content. Well, and quite frankly, I really need to start assembling this scene. I have this this map. Well, let's move that off to the side. I have this ground. This happens to be the mid ground. As I select it, notice how in my elements panel, that's my mid ground that I am manipulating. It shows my world map is in front. And if I want to start manipulating sort of the depth or the layering or stacking of all of these graphics, I can do that in the Elements panel. So I can take this world map and I can bring it back, behind the Impala. I can take that grass. See that grass? That happens to be the foreground. Well, makes sense to bring that to the top, and that will put it in front of everything else, just like that. All right, that's looking better. So we'll drag up the Impala as well. So foreground, Impala, midground looks good. We have the world map. Let's bring that above the midground, and then we have that background. Okay, so I've created this nice depth so far. But I'd actually like to do a little more here as well. Really what I'd like to do is add some nice depth of field. Okay, so I want to blur out the background, allowing me to focus on the foreground. I think that would look cool. Well, what I can do, and I encourage you can always lock down any of these layers if you want, allowing you to select what you need to select. In this case, it's the background. I can go in here to my properties panel, filters. Oh, let's take a look. I can invert, adjust the coloring, saturation, grayscale, all that stuff. Oh, look, right down here, blurring. I can blur out that background. Okay, so this is great. So I encourage you, drag that slider or just type in a number such as 6 pixels and blur out that background. So that looks pretty good. Next up will be the actual Impala. So I'm just going to unlock these layers. In this case, I can just select that Impala. Let's blur out that Impala maybe by 2 pixels. Maybe that midground, again, selecting that midground. 2 pixels there. Since the Impala is on that midground, I'm doing that the same, and you can see how that looks pretty good. I really like how this looks. It's really set up, but you can see how Edge Animate gives me flexibility for adding graphics. Really, my last step is going to be to save this file, and I'm going to save it into this folder. There's the graphics came from that design folder, but I'm just going to save out an index.html file. So I'm going to save that out. Okay, so once I save it out, I'll even take a look in that folder. What does it do? Well, it creates all these JavaScript files, puts the images in there, gives me some other includes, but it's all HTML. I didn't have to write any of this code. As I select it, open it up, you can see there's my scene. All done visually in Edge Animate. And really my next step with this is to add more animation and interactivity and just have fun in Edge Animate setting up this nice scene.